Welcome, everyone, to the show Passing Notes, where we're sharing music across generations. Tonight is Thursday, January 21st, and we're going to do the same thing we do every Thursday, talk about an album. I'm joined, as always, by my brother at Jack's Nasty Box. That's his Xbox Live tag and preferred form of address. I'm also joined by my father, ex-pancake turner, DJ Jonathan Livingston Siegel, ladies and gentlemen. That's his old radio moniker, a hard one to forget, but kind of timeless.
None of that's true.
And finally, in the top right Jeopardy square, our agent of chaos, local Iowa improv journeyman and avid Whose Line Is It Anyway enthusiast, Hale. How are we doing tonight, boys?
I've never been less honored.
Wow.
I feel the same way. All right. Well, I've got some. What?
If I could think of a way to honor you less, Cale, I'd be happy to do
it. Are you saying you're not that clever?
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, I've got some icebreakers for each of you tonight. So everybody, wake up. Let's start here with our man fresh from the studio. Cale, could you give us the best line of the night tonight from improv, preferably without any context?
Don't touch that shoe. That was a funny one.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that, Cale. I thought that was a good chance for the audience to get to know you a little better. Excellent. Next
I'll be
up,
using that phrase throughout the night.
This next one's for you, Nasty Box. Nasty, I'm going to be stepping into a leadership role soon, where I'll be younger than most of the employees I'm managing, and as someone with experience being a young leader, what would your best advice to someone in my position be?
Okay. I would say, so this is hard for me because I started off as not the leadership position. So I was developing friendships and then that formed a quota of how they just were addressing me originally, right? Like just as a friend, as a peer normally. So it's a bit different for me.
And then you're the boss kind of thing.
Yeah, because then I got promoted, and then they're like, well, it's still the same guy, so I'm going to treat him the same way. So it was a little tough. So you have to be a little tougher around the edges. Be like, no, you got to do this. Like, I'm very much, would you please do this if you could? If it doesn't bother you, will you go do this, please? Kind of guy, especially if I was a friend before I was their boss. And sometimes you just got to be a bit more rough about it, just so that they'll gain the respect that they need to, so that they don't start talking back or just like not doing their job or whatever.
I see. Excellent answer. Thank you. Yeah. And finally, for you, Mr. DJ, I was wondering if you could maybe give us a few of your favorite slang terms for jockeys. Or maybe some of your favorite on-air names, kind of, if you will, we already know yours, but if you could give us some other ones.
No, those are classified and not something you can share until, the moment of truth comes and the mic is open and you're on the airwaves. We're a tight-knit group that doesn't give away our secrets to the general public. We're a secret society, us ex-DJs. Sorry, I know.
Would you say you're comparable to the Illuminati?
It's very intriguing.
Or magicians?
Yeah, closer to magicians probably than the Illuminati. Although we do
I
like
compare them maybe to old, like,
self-flagellation is a big part of what we do for sure.
Okay.
from what I've seen and like of their like prowess, it seems to remind me more of old school like jesters or fools. You know how they can just kind of make songs out of everyday events and conversations just by the general words people are saying.
Yeah, I mean,
Or pull songs from memory like that is what I get.
I would say fools is dancing around the subject lightly. I would say idiots would be probably the more appropriate word. Clueless,
Hmm.
morons.
Oh, I meant more fools is in the performing sense.
Yeah, yeah. Although they're usually better dressed than DJs.
Hmm.
Indubitably.
Well, I say, our man in the DJ game, maybe he hasn't provided any names, but I'll say one of my favorites is Downtown Donald Brown. That's
Downtown,
he's one for the ages.
downtown Tommy Brown.
One of the greats. No, that was his brother.
Oh, got
This
it.
was Donald Brown.
Donald. Okay.
All right. With that, I think we can get into it, boys. We're doing this week a little bit different. Instead of picking an album that I had a history and familiarity with, I decided to pick a brand new album that I hadn't heard from a band I had a history with. That band is The Strokes, and the album this week is The New Abnormal, aptly titled, with the catchphrase "the new normal" being thrown around so much this year. My brother on the other side of the family turned me on to The Strokes when he bought me First Impressions of Earth right when it came out in 2006. And I was hooked right away. I dove into the early Strokes discography, the two albums before that as well. Is This It? And Room on Fire. And I loved those. It was something different. It was something weird. Something not a lot of people, at least around me, were listening to either, which made it even cooler too. So I loved it and listened to it a ton in middle and high school, but kind of stopped following once I went to college and my playlist turned to bangers only. So I haven't listened to the Strokes in probably almost a decade, if not exactly a decade, if close to, if I had to guess. So I had a really great time listening to this album, refamiliarizing myself with the Strokes and seeing what they're up to these days. I'm wondering what you guys thought right when you played the first few tracks on the album for the first time.
Yeah, well, personally, I kind of go through that as I talk about each song. I am sharing my first impressions, so I'll kind of hold off on that
Sure.
for as we get to the tracks.
Ditto.
Well, I'll give you a little brief history about my details, or my history with the Strokes.
I'd love that.
All right, so here's my history with the Strokes. I had never heard of them up until maybe like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, when I got closer with a group of friends of mine, Jason, famously known as Jaders from the comments of last week's podcast, and his group of
Shout
boys
out.
are big fan of the Strokes and the and Interpol and Arctic Monkeys and the like. And I was a big fan of Arctic Monkeys, so I was like, well, let me see what these guys, the Strokes, who they talk a lot about, are all about. So I dove in to something. I think I just probably tried to play their top song, which is it Reptilia? Is that the Strokes?
Yep.
Yep.
Am I right on that? And then I just kind of went down from there, and this album wasn't out yet. And it never caught me. I was at work, I would assume, at the time. So, I was obviously doing other things. I wasn't focused on it. And I think Julian's voice can just kind of do that to you, where it doesn't quite grab you if you're not giving it undivided attention, I think. it kind of has that effect, especially when he's not doing much with it. Oftentimes he just kind of has this mumble sing, which is good in its own right, but I wouldn't say stands out in, say, a crowd of other singers. So personally, I haven't been a fan, and I'm not like I hate them. It's just like I'm not into them. I can't get into them. I don't know what it is. They just don't catch my attention. It's not something I want to listen to. So that's where I was been. Um, though some of these songs, after further listens and trying to do some undivided listening, um, you know, might make their way onto my playlist from now on, and maybe I'll revisit some other albums and tracks to see if it just needed more listens and more attention.
Sure. And I'm glad you mentioned Reptilia, because I feel like a whole generation of kids had to have found their way to the Strokes through that song being on Rock Band or Guitar Hero. Actually, I think it was. I think Guitar Hero 2, maybe Guitar Hero 3. But I think they had that one on there and one other one. And I know I played that, although that was never one of my favorite Strokes songs. Anyway, excellent. Well, with that, I think we can dive into the album. So let's start with the opening track, The Adults Are Talking. And let's start with the adult. Or the most adult? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
Big boy.
So here it comes, and this is my first exposure to the Strokes. I'd heard of them, but whatever, I hadn't heard them in my galaxy. And so I was anxious because certainly their name had been common around my planets, but just never landed between my ears. So I'm like, hey, okay, why do I know this name? Let's check it out. Do I know any songs? Nope. As it turns out, I didn't recognize Reptilia. So I put the stylus down on the album, and the first impression was, I don't mind this music. It's catchy and interesting. Vocalist is likable. Lyrics, at least on The Adults Are Talking, a little too abstract to get me invested in them. And I start noticing right away, well, their song structures aren't typical. Here's an 8-line chorus that is the longest and maybe most obtuse chorus I believe I've ever heard. And for my ears, no hook. And, the DJ got to hear a hook. So I'm like, oh, well, it's kind of a interesting start. Let's see what the rest of this bad boy has in store for us.
I was in the exact same boat. I know who the Strokes are. I understand their MO, but I have never heard their music, and I had never heard of any of their songs before. I knew they were a band. That's about it. The Adults Are Talking. Yeah, this is the very first sound of me hearing them. And there's something about this that I should really, really like. And I think it's deep in there somewhere. I really enjoyed the synth pop kind of intro. And I like his kind of lo-fi, kind of pulled back vocal. There's a cool little bass sting that I got a kick out of for a second. And then some more restrained vocals for the chorus. And then a cool build at the end with a falsetto. So I'm going, okay, here's a decent sound. They don't sound bad by any means. I agree, the lyrics are very, very interesting, and I'm all for not understanding what they're about. And I dug the vocalist. Additionally, towards the end of the track, I'm a huge fan of when songs just sort of bleed into other songs. And this is a great example of that, which I think works very effectively. I will say this, I don't really know what this song is about, and I'm okay with that.
Well, I can try and enlighten you maybe just a little bit from what I've read. um, so I think it's kind of
Via genius.com.
yeah, you go genius.com. So
That's somebody else's idea of what the lyrics are about.
yeah, but if you know the
Oh,
Strokes fans, they're like deep into it. So it's got two kind of messages, I believe. One is about them being regarded as trying to take away the spotlight from people who were less successful originally artists, because all the band members come from wealthy families, so they were criticized for that, I guess. And so that's like part of it. And then another part is talking just about kind of corporations in general and big business, and like how people will like lie to you, not tell you the truth, just kind of schemes that are going on around there. Is the adults are talking, like the professionals, the big boys, the 1%ers are talking, I think, is what the main message is about from what I read. But the track itself starts off the album bossing with those deep electronic drums with the snare and the hi-hats. Then the bass guitar comes in and they start grooving. And then, they unplug the mics to all the instruments, but Julian comes in and cues him back in with his vocals, which personally I'm not the biggest fan of. I've come to like it a bit more, but I'm not the biggest fan of it, especially on this song.
The more you listen to it, the more you'll like it.
Yeah, 100%. But on this song, I got like 30 seconds in, rewind. 30 seconds in, rewind. 10 seconds in, rewind. I'm like, that bossing start with the synth is just so good. It sets a vibe that I feel like the tone of his singing just doesn't match. I like the vibe of the entire song. I feel like I would like it better without the vocals. I looked for a version of it, couldn't find it. But I think possibly I could like the song better if there was no vocals whatsoever. That being said, so let's see. Yeah, the instrumentation mixing is just so good on this track. I feel like the vocals are kind of dull, like I was saying. But I think that in itself is good for this song, because it allows you to just vibe with the sound of the song and really pick up on all the intricacies and the many layers that make up this song without focusing too much on the vocals, because he puts a little bit of stank on it every now and then, but a little bit of stank on it. But he doesn't try to drag too much attention. Like, I'm willing to bet that most of you didn't even catch the guitar that's absolutely vibing by himself, only in your left ear during the instrumental break, while Julian is soaring with his but there is one guitar. There's one guitar in your left ear only if you're listening in headphones, vibing back there. He's vibing back there, and I bet none of you heard it because it's mixed. There's so many layers. But I do like it. And you definitely need to listen for him next time you're listening to it, because he's killing it. He's killing it.
I want to listen right now. I feel like I had to have heard it, but
so yeah. That being said, about his vocals, there are still some cool vocal things Julian does that I have to get credit for. Like I just said, in the second break, Julian's soaring while just singing some vowels, which is cool. I enjoy the way he changes up the lines, "Say it after me" and "Climbing up your wall" for the second time in the first verse, both of them. He goes, "Climbing up your wall." He does a little, he puts a little bit of stank on it.
Some good stuff.
And how he sounds identical to another 80 band song that has been on the tip of my tongue for way too long, and I couldn't place my finger on it until I asked Dad. In the outro, when he's saying, "Oh, maybe not tonight. Oh, maybe not tonight." I'm like, what does it sound like? It sounds identical to another 80s song or band singer. I can't figure out who it was. And my dad's like, "Oh, it's like the Cars." And I'm like,
You say, what is it? You're All I've Got Tonight, or what?
I couldn't figure what song it was, but it's definitely the Cars. It's It's just the voice, or whatever kind of rasp, kind of at the
Don't
end of
just
the
stop.
shortness.
Don't just stop.
Oh, don't you stop? No, that's too cheery. That's too cheery.
Yeah,
But it's maybe not tonight.
It's more panorama style off that album from the Cars.
Sure.
I think.
But yeah, I enjoyed the song. It's a pretty big vibe, especially that first 10 seconds when it's just the synth. Man, that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, it sounds like you went pretty deep on that, and I love that. And you mentioned a few things that I want to talk about, so I'm pumped about that. But first, I want to zoom out a little bit because, first thing I want to say is I tried to kind of do a Strokes deep dive going into this week, going through their discography so I could kind of compare and contrast this with stuff they've done before. And it was a blast. It was a blast going back, but I'm so stupid. I only went back to the old albums that I remembered. The 3 I listed off before. I didn't even realize that they had released 2 albums, one in 2011 and one in 2013. And I didn't even listen to those until I saw them today. And I was like, oh, didn't know that these were out here. So I tried to listen to them today, but they didn't get a fair listen like the other ones. So when I talk about stuff, I might sound a little out of touch if those maybe have stuff that I think that they don't. But with that being said, I think that right away, when comparing this song to Old Strokes, well, first, what are Old Strokes to me? I think I'm used to them being kind of a little bit darker, definitely kind of dramatic with Julian, more mellow, melancholy. There's definitely still touches of it on this record, on this album. You can tell in some of the slower songs, but I'm used to that, and like complexity and like tension building. And right away, this one is a little bit different. I'm used to Julian kind of having a filter over his voice and sounding kind of distorted. And even though, he's talking in a muffled tone on this song, right away, it sounds more clear than I'm used to. And same with the instrumentation. It sounds way more clear. And I think a big reason for that is the big brain behind the album, Rick Rubin, who's producer on this album. And I don't know if you guys remember, this is actually our second Rick Rubin album. The first being, does anybody remember?
Wildflowers.
Exactly. Yes, the Tom Petty album. So, and I think I watched an interview with Rick Rubin for that one, if I remember right. And for this album, I watched an interview with Julian Casablancas, the lead singer, and he talks a ton about working with Rick Rubin, how they've always wanted to, and his influence on the record. And Jack, and I think maybe one of you other guys also mentioned like kind of the groove on the album, and I don't really associate the Strokes with a groove too often, at least not in the funky kind of way I'm used to. But this album absolutely has a groove, and Julian talks about that in the interview, how some people are really technical about their arrangements or whatever, but Rick Rubin is just kind of a weird sensei of like just finding this groove and rolling with that. And I think this record definitely has some of that. And another thing he mentions is how he told Julian to go in the vocal booth to sing for this whole album. And he normally likes to sing out in the main recording area with the rest of the band so he can give them cues, instead of being in his own soundproof room with the headset on, where he can't really talk to them, or like maybe he could with a mic. But and I think that makes a huge difference too, because his voice is so clear and I don't know, stronger than I'm used to on this album too.
Can I make a little comment on that last thing?
Yeah.
About why that might be, why he dislikes that so much. And from what little I know, this is just kind of like a thing that I'm thinking about. So, Julian was a cause of issue for the band for a while, especially in making the album Angles. Apparently, he kept putting off recordings and was even recording separate from the band. Like separately, he would send in his vocals.
Right.
He would, and that would cause a big issue for the band and caused, I guess, probably why it took 5 years to come out.
Yeah.
So it might stem from that, where he's like, okay, now I feel bad. I mean, he mentions it several times in various songs in this album how it's his fault that happened and that he feels bad and remorseful for it. So, like, maybe he's like, I need to be part of this now. So, I don't know. Maybe that has something to do with it. Why he likes to be part of the band now. I don't know. Something, maybe.
No, I'm sad. Well, anyway. I'd say as soon as the guitar and the bass come into this song a few seconds in, it has the signature workings and sound of a Strokes song. And it's a good intro to the album because it's maybe, it's that signature Strokes song, but maybe with a more modern, mature, or just slightly altered approach. I'm not sure which or if all of them. But all that, and finally, me, I'm a complete sucker for the falsetto bridge. And that's all I've got on that one. Selfless, second track.
Yeah. Are we gonna touch on Julian's home life, his background on that whole, how he grew up a little bit, or saving that for a special spot in the program this
Bust it
evening?
out. Bust it out.
Well,
Inform us.
part of the reason I'm saying it here is because I don't have a long list of notes for this particular tune. But when I did, after listening to the album several times, I did look up the band and then did see where Julian is the son of John Casablancas. And if you're of a certain age, you'll remember, if you were at least a young adult in the 80s, his name, he was on the gossip column, and he was somewhat of a celebrity as the owner of Elite Modeling Agency, which had to be an interesting place to be and be around as a youngster. Being exposed very early to bulimia and other such things. That's all I got, but it was kind of a shocking, like, oh, that's an interesting little tidbit. Anyway, anybody have any addition to that?
Well, it's kind of funny how you mention it on this song, because I believe one of the lyrics on this song is it this song? It goes,
Yeah.
why'd you let them judge your body? Yeah. Which is in
Yeah.
reference to, I believe, that career. And I think this is semi about his mother, who was a model for that agency.
It's got to be at least partially, for sure.
Yeah. So it's funny that you mentioned that for this song, which I don't think you meant to do, but yeah.
Hey, happy accident.
There you go.
This song, Selfless. My thoughts were, well, this is kind of simplistic musically. It's weirdly interesting vocally. And I thought it's kind of messy lyrically. Yet I found myself liking the song for the kind of crazy ride that it is. And that falsetto, I would say, is worth any price of admission to get to that.
Yeah, there's a super cool beat on this one, as customary. It seems with this entire album. I love his vocal choices. Obviously, we mentioned the falsetto, which I think is very nice. There's this interesting kind of ethereal sounding bridge, which I enjoyed. I love his second vocal part, I would say. I think I don't know if you'd call that the second verse quite. I'm not sure. Um, there's a vocal upswing, which I think is also very, very cool and very lovely. And his vocal choice on But I Will Live for You" stuck out to me every single time I listened to it. It was extremely well phrased, and I'm always akin to hearing good phrases, and I like that. So As an overall song, don't think it's one I'm adding to the playlist, but definitely not one that I don't care for.
Nice. I found it to be a super pretty relationship song. The roles in this song kind of flip from the last song for me, with Julian taking the lead and being the star of this song, with his super high falsetto contrasting with his usual mellow sounding vocals, make for a cool effect. The mixing on this song I find very weird, especially listening in my headphones, with the high string riff that starts the song and plays throughout the verses, playing only in my left, making it a little jarring. Especially at the start when nothing else is playing, so nothing's happening in my right ear, and just this very jarring, loud synth is in my left ear. But fine, you get past it once other stuff comes in. Otherwise, I found the song very pretty and enjoyable.
Yeah, this one maybe isn't a standout, but I think the vocals over that melody combo really works for me, and I think it's probably is because it turns it into a little bit of a vocal showcase, and he shines in moments like that in the verses, just like the one you mentioned. The "Why'd you let them judge your body?" and those kind of emotionally tinged lines. I don't have a ton to say about it either. I really like that. You called it ethereal. I have eerie and spooky in my notes. So we get the same vibe, and I think Julian's mellow crooning goes nicely with that. Solid track. Number 3, Brooklyn Bridge to Chorus. Perfect from a New York band. Finally get to maybe, is this the first explicit New York reference? I don't know.
As far as I caught, 3 songs in, after listening to this one, I'm like, okay, this kind of confirms my suspicions that the Strokes don't write songs in the formulaic, traditional way that DJs like to hear songs. And I'm like, all right, all right. And is that a compliment or a criticism? Depends on your point of view. From the DJ point of view, it's like, oh man, I like a little more predictability. I like hooks. I like those earworms that come back around in the song to haunt you. And I don't get a lot of that vibe from this band so far. And that's okay because not everybody is looking for that. I thought the vocals I always like. I noticed that 3 songs in, it's like I like this vocalist, and the variety he brings on this song, because he's pretty. He's got a lot of sounds already. I noticed this, and the vocals on this song reminded me much of the time of Green Day. A little effect on the voice. Some of the phrasing reminds me of Billy Joe Armstrong. And I liked that because I like Green Day. And this track I thought was inoffensive.
We'll take it.
Yes, now I get this band is the first note that I wrote because I'm not sure I quite got it. I didn't really get this record until I listened to this song. I adore this song. Let me start there. Um, it's super danceable. Um, the choices that are being made, both musically and vocally, I think are paired extremely well. The synth work, I think, is fabulous. Um, and one of my favorite moments of all is when there's a break in the music and the vocalist says break. I like that. I think that's ingenious. And I think this song is the turning point for me because I realized and I attached it to an image in my head that I get. And that's the image of a modern metropolitan New York City. This is a subway riding song. I see, these flashes of different colors of different folks, expressing themselves in different ways. And this song, I think, is the background to such a scene. And I think putting it into that perspective just gave me a different appreciation for what this album is. Because um, for me, um, album covers and album art is a really important aspect of making an album. And if we look at this one, it's a painting by I believe it's Jean-Michel
Basquiat.
Basquiat, yes, who famously was known for his very urban and very modernistic depictions of city life. Um, and it's a very colorful painting as well. And I think this song matches that perfectly. And I started to get what this album was at this point, and it made me love it and appreciate it more as I listened. And this song is it's great. This song might even be my favorite on the record.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Julian talks about that in the interview too. I think Basquiat was a New York guy,
Yep.
and so Julian's like, okay, here are my top 5 Basquiats, and the band decided which one to put on the album. So yeah, it was perfect.
Yeah, I kind of want to talk about what Dad was saying about how they might be like they don't like to be formulaic, and I think that mainly, and I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with the old. Actually, I'm not gonna get into that, but I think Julian Casablancas likes to think smartly. I think he,
Hell yes, he does.
yeah, I think he's similar to, um, I'm forgetting his name, but the brainchild of San Furman, in a way, but not quite maybe to that extent that Edgar, I think was his name. Was that his last name? I don't remember. Um, from San Furman is that I think this just came evident to me because I was stumbling across YouTube videos of him on Rolling Stone's YouTube page interviewing people like Henry Giroux, who is a very smart political mind, and even interviewing Andrew Yang more recently. I think he likes to take himself to think a bit more seriously, and I'm not sure if this stems from him not liking who he was when he was more drunk, because I know in his past he had been a lot more, he'd been very much into drinking, and he decided to sober up when he married his wife. I'm not sure if he didn't, I don't think he likes who he was back then, but I'm not sure if he was thinking smartly back then. I don't know. Bart would have to fill me in about that. Um, I don't know if that has something to do with it, but either way, he likes. I think he likes to think smartly. He's not one to write a typical pop song. I don't think he'd be satisfied with that. Like when he was talking with James Corden on on the Late Late Show, Jordan was making a joke about how many pockets he has on his vest, and Julian Casablanca says, "We're in an invisible war right now." And Gordon was like, well, that took a turn. And it makes me just want to keep going. So, it's kind of funny. I think that's
Is it a
just
war
how he
with
likes it.
pocket fuzz?
Yeah, I don't know.
No,
He had a
it
vest
was a
with a lot of
political.
pockets.
Yeah. I
Yeah. So, anyways, about the song, Kick-Ass Synths.
No, hold on.
Okay.
So, no, you're definitely right, and I think in the interview I'm talking about, and I need to give this man some credit. I think his name is Fantano.
Yeah, Anthony Fantano.
Yeah, Fantano from the Needle
Anthony
Drop.
Fantana.
Yes, that's the interview I was talking about. It was an excellent one. And Julian relates this album. He's talking about it, and how this album kind of has a nostalgic feel, or he gets asked about that. And he's like, well, I think of this album as kind of a indulging in your guilty pleasures. He's like, there's some songs on here I normally wouldn't have written, since I kind of like to be, like an intellectual with music, write some kind of high IQ songs. So I think it's kind of funny to hear Dad say, I don't know, these are a little different. Like, I think you would hate an older Strokes album if that's the case. since this is their more approach to mainstream. He compared it to him like wanting to write a Wham song and sounding a little bit like Wham. What they were doing on this album for them. So, yeah, Jack, I think you're definitely right. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Brooklyn Bridge to chorus, kick at synth start into the bass and vocals, then into the guitar-driven chorus. I mean, it's a recipe for success for the Strokes. I believe this is more of a dip into some of their older sound with the guitar-driven chorus. It's super
100%.
catchy. What'd you say?
I said 100%.
Oh, yeah. Super catchy and singable chorus that becomes an earworm after a listen or two. And of course, the cheeky, can we switch into the chorus right now? And then chorus. Kind of as a ingenious thing, as Kale referenced earlier, about break into the break. Even a super memorable bridge is not something you see very often in songs. And for this one, I found it to be quite memorable. Overall, I found this was to be a great tune.
Hey, if saying break, the word break, and going into a break is smart music, okay, fellas, go ahead.
No, I'd say, remember, I was saying this album was more of his version of dumb music. So, anyway.
He's smart about being dumb.
To me, this is the first song on the album that really dips into the nostalgia, and I think it all comes from that synth that hits you right in the face right at the beginning. I think that kind of has an 80s sound to me, at least. Or maybe it's just because the song mentions a bunch of nostalgic things, like 80s bands specifically. I love the guitar break before the second chorus, and I think the drums kick ass all song long on this one. Definitely pushing it along at a great speed. I'd call this one a mini banger, since the chorus doesn't go quite as hard as the rest for me, but still a very solid track. Next up, Bad Decisions. Making bad decisions.
Well, this must be his track he wrote for idiots. Because this is great right away. I'm like, these notes start, and I'm like, what? They get a band to step in for the Strokes here all of a sudden? What happened? The guitar is incredible. The opening and other guitar parts throughout this song are very reminiscent of modern English's I Melt With You.
Thank God somebody else noticed.
Oh my God. If they're not the same notes in the same order, there's some of the same notes somewhere in there.
They are. It's an almost one-for-one sample.
Dial it up, kids, if you're not familiar with that song, and compare. And oh, really? This is not the Strokes. The chorus is so hooky. It's like, yeah, he's really dumbing it down for me on this one. Again, great guitar throughout, and his voice, very plaintive on this track, very honest, kind of unencumbered by any self-consciousness. Again, maybe dumbing it down for us. This is the most poppy track so far, and predictably my favorite.
And for those reasons, Your Honor, it was a skip for me every time. I tried. I really did. I just don't like this song. The beat's cool, but it's repetitive. The chorus is repetitive. My best note is good background music.
Awesome.
Next.
So yeah,
Next.
Bad Decisions is a more direct homage to 80s music than the last track, with a very similar melody to Billy Idol's Dancing With Myself. Yeah, it's definitely the most radio-friendly track on the album, which is probably why my girlfriend is sick of it, because she hears it all the time at work.
What?
Yeah, she hears it all the time at work. So she's sick of the
Is it
song.
on the radio?
Or whatever, like Pandora they're putting on at Hy-Vee. Yeah, I think it is. It might be on the radio. Yeah.
Wow. They got Bad Decisions on it, IV.
Yeah. So yeah,
Hilarious.
you gotta love the classic guitar melody sound, and when Julian gives the vocals a little stank in the outro, a few different ways, it's very cool. I think it's a great modern version of the classic '80s rock sound. That's how I would describe this song.
Even though, I know everybody's got their own feelings, their own experiences, they're all gonna like stuff differently. I can't help. I gotta take it a little bit personally that Kale so did not like this track. I don't know how you can't when it's got almost direct samples of both Melt with You and Dancing with Myself, and it's an awesome mix of the two. Who doesn't love being able to recognize those music samples and throwbacks? It gives you that warm feeling. They already feel kind of right because you've heard the song before, so you kind of know what's going on. And I don't know. I think this is a great translation of both of them. Plus, making bad decisions, such a great line to repeat, especially if you're up to anything even mildly mischievous. Like you're going 9 over the speed limit in a residential, that's making bad decisions. You might not want to be doing that. And it's hilarious. I don't know. This song just makes me smile sometimes when it comes on in funny situations. How many good things can I say about it? I already talked about how I liked it. The throwback filtered guitar riff we've talked about is awesome, which turns into the nostalgia blast. There's also the intonation, like the ooze at the end of every word. Moscow 1972. I like those are always catchy, always. The chorus, obviously, cheekier lyrics like do me a favor when I come through and I look around, I don't want to see you. Great. And of course, the outro, really, really bad decisions, throw some yaz and some ooze in there. Good stuff. Is it a banger? I barely know her. I don't know. Banger? I don't know. I barely know her. Couldn't say on this one.
Okay.
That's sick and wrong. Oh, yeah, I'm very disappointed in Kale for pulling the highbrow card. But we'll see if I can forgive him by the end of the pod.
Yeah. Next up is Eternal Summer. What do we got?
We've got different kind of flock of seagullsy at the start of the song. Not much going on musically. Vocals, however, are very interesting.
Oops.
Then the chorus goes kind of Pink Floyd, and there's some falsetto pieces, and this is just some weird shit. I swore I heard hints of the Sex Pistols in there. And then I realized, you're such a dad. You're out of the loop. This has got to be a buzz band, right? I mean, this is tripping music, or you listen to High, right? It's got to be.
Maybe.
Now this song I dug. I love this song. The falsetto is cool. I wrote, I'm having cherub flashbacks. There were a handful of moments with the synth and with the falsetto vocals. I'm like, this sounds like cherub. I love the shouted vocals on I Can't Believe It. I totally wrote, this sounds like The Wall. It does. It sounds like
It
Pink
really
Floyd's
does.
The Wall.
Really does.
And that's why I loved it. I kind of like the fact that this song is, in a way, it's a slow burn. Just as far as beat and length and the space in between. And the guitar work. My God, the guitar work. There actually is some really fantastic guitar stuff, very much like and akin to The Wall. I really, really liked this song.
Yeah, at the beginning there, I thought Kale was just like, you know what? I have a vendetta against Dad. I'm going to say the exact opposite of what he said because he's kind of being blunt.
He's trolling me. I'm sure of it.
Like Dad was like, this is some weird shit. And then Kale was like, this song was great. I loved it.
All right, I don't like. Okay, here's the deal. I don't like the pandering '80s shit. I want to be
Okay.
weirded out a little bit. I want my box to be expanded a little bit. Get out of the repetitive chorus.
Got it.
Take me on an adventure.
Well, here I go about Eternal Summer. Like a group of high druggies shifting between paranoia and bliss, this song preaches about global warming and its immediate point of no return. And that as individuals, we all have ways to contribute, but those at top, who are the only ones capable of turning the titanic Earth away from the glacier of global warming, are turning a blind eye, claiming it's all a fantasy, or taking bribes from those who wish to profit at the expense of the quality of living or even lives of their children and those after that. Man.
Heavy.
Yeah, that's what this song's about, man. That's where that high
Get your
druggy
boots,
stuff,
kids.
that druggy stuff and the shifting, I think, is very cool. That's the return of the falsetto and moody contrast that we saw earlier. I think it was in Selfless. That makes the shift between bliss and paranoia so cool in this song, where it's high and they're all kind of like da da da, and then he goes, "I can't believe it. This is the 11th hour," and then like kind of goes back to that little dainty place. It's kind of cool. I like that.
Fantastic.
Yeah. The outro starts sounding like everything is falling apart and spinning out of control, but then switches to a bright and cheery sound while repeating the line, "Look up on the bright side." Boom. Interesting track. Worth a few listens for sure. I'll definitely come back to it for some joy in listening. I don't think it will quite make the playlist, but it's good nonetheless.
Yeah, I think it's another one that more listens the better. You know, you asked Mark on the last song, what band is this that's replaced the Strokes? And this song is where I asked, what band is this? To me, this is totally new Strokes territory, and I'm obsessed. You know, this one's right in my wheelhouse. I'd argue, you know, maybe I wouldn't say this is 80s pandering, Kale, but I'd still say there's definitely some 80s sounds. I'd say this is a groovy 80s kind of style funk, which is very Cherub, like you said. But then that 180 turn into the Floydian too.
Yeah.
You know, I love that kind of. What's that?
No, I was referring to the repetitive '80s sound coming from Bad Decisions. To me, Bad Decisions is the worst one I've made on the album so far.
Right. Yeah, I love that Floydian break, especially since we're not staying there. You know, we're going in and out of that alternate reality part of the song. Which, by the way, that part has some amazing drums, screaming hi-hat, and I love that offbeat guitar. So good. And there's just something so strong about they got the remedy. You know, it's great. It's a great political song, you know, packed into, or maybe not even packed into, because it's not really hidden. It's just kind of combined, layered, sandwiched into an airy summer jam. I think it goes hard. Next up, At the Door. Here we go.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Kale's gonna hate this one. Great synth open, best lyrics of any song on the album. Really, really nice song. This became my co-favorite. Super vocal performance. The music is subdued during the vocals, and then it's nice and hooky in between. And use me like an oar and get yourself to shore.
So good.
Great. Yeah.
So good.
I love this song.
That's not.
I love.
Dad
I
goes,
love this
that's
song.
impossible. No.
That the clever lyricism.
Show your notes. Prove it. Prove they don't say this thing sucks.
Wait, where is it? At the door. Right there. I loved it. I
But
love
look,
it.
he's flipping me off as he does it. You see that? I noticed that. You're still trolling me.
Oh, we're having fun. I love this song. Love this song. It's a beautiful proto ballad. My man on the synth is killing it.
Mm.
Beautiful, beautiful ballad. His vocal choices are perfect. None of them, not a vocal choice is incorrect. I love this song, and I don't have much to say about it.
Yeah, starting off with a somber sounding synth that isn't actually a synth.
I was gonna say, you guys are
Is it really
wrong.
not?
It's not a synth.
It's a digital guitar.
Damn, beat me to it. I was hoping because they both said it, and then you said it, and I was like, nobody read it. Nobody read it. But
Yeah,
I had also thought it was a synth for most of the week. So
yeah. So yeah, it's actually guitar. It's a very cool ballad. Contrary to what I previously said about Julian, I actually really like his vocals in this track, and I think they fit the vibe of the song very well. Love the bridge. The beginning of the outro is a little odd, but other than that, I really enjoy the song. Great ballad.
all right, who's got me this week? I need someone to sound the alarm. We've
Banger
got
alert.
a
Banger alert.
banger alert, banger alert. Gotta love Julian's voice on this. No question, my favorite song to sing right now. I hit this at least once every car ride, usually more than once, to the point where for a brief period during the week, I was worried I wouldn't have a voice for the podcast because I'd been belting it so hard, so consistently in my car. But no, let's get into it. His voice and that incredible vibrato that he hits on every single line, sometimes multiple times a line, just rings so strong and clear, and it's isolated so perfectly, except for that 8-bit guitar, which is a guitar. And then the lyrics
That's
building up
amazing.
into the lyrics to me building up into one of the greatest moments in recent music history when it strikes you like a chord and the angelic chorus comes in right at the same time. Oh, what an epic moment. What an amazing moment. Man, hold on. The song is just too much.
He's tearing up.
Turn the page.
In that same section, there's like a really subtle, I want to say it's a xylophone, but I thought the other thing was a synth that was a guitar, so I don't know what it is, but there's some really subtle like keys or percussion in the background that's really, really nice. And then the lines, they just melt into each other so buttery smooth. You already mentioned use me like an oar to get yourself to shore, but like all of them. I mean, banging on the door, I'm an ugly boy. I don't know. They're great. The outro's a little crazy, but I look at it as kind of a cool down from what an amazing song it was, especially if you belt the whole thing. This one's 10 out of 10. Bonus facts on this one: Julian called it the least organic song on the album. He talked about grooves earlier. How a lot of this album's songs were kind of, the tracks stemmed from just kind of jam sessions, but this track came from a lot of different people contributing different things to get it to all come together. Like
Selling
the guitar
out.
first, and then he calls it a lab freak. Selling out what?
Selling out and rhyming his lines. How gross.
This is, to me, no question, the number one song I want to see live right now. And I'm so mad there doesn't already exist a live performance. The fans have got to be screaming for it, and it would be incredible. If the Strokes go on tour this year, dying to go just for the chance to maybe hear that live.
I thought I saw.
You got to see it live.
Did I not see a tour schedule?
I haven't looked.
I think I thought I saw something. I hope I didn't dream that, but
It could be possible.
let's get some of our people to look into that quickly while we continue the podcast.
Right, editor. That one's gonna be hard to top, but let's keep it rolling. Why are Sundays so depressing? Not when
Jamie,
you're.
pull that up.
I'm working on it. Yeah, they got a tour next year and the year after.
There we go. Your dream may come true. Seeing At the Door live. Okay, why are Sundays so depressing? I have an idea. Because they start out really well with a great breakfast, and then you're looking forward to lunch, and some weird shit happens, and then supper's good, and then things go a little south after that. That's why. So, but that has nothing to do with this song that has this cool, jangly guitar, clear and clever lyrics, welcome phrasing, vocal phrasing. What a great beginning. And now here comes the chorus. These guys are on a roll, loved the last song. And what? What is this distorted sonogram sounding bullshit for a chorus? That sucks. This was going so well. Oh, but wait, the post-chorus is better. Here comes the second verse. It wasn't a dream. This is great again. Kind of a Jekyll and Hyde track for me. Obviously, a little bipolar. Fortunately, more Jekyll than Hyde, though. I like the track. That chorus is kind of lame.
I agree the chorus was definitely strange. Wouldn't go so far as to say it's lame. I feel like I know what they're trying to do, and to me that counts. If I'm correct in assuming that this band is some things, as Bart and Jack both suggested, as in old Strokes versus new Strokes, there's obviously some things that are changing. I would chalk this song up to, hey, we're trying stuff. And you know what? I'll give it to you. The beat's cool. For the verses, it's really easy to swing to, as I wrote. This again back to a kind of metropolitan feel, which I like. And what I understand of this album and of this band so far. I love the guitar solo. Brilliant, lovely guitar solo. And yes, I'm a fan of the jangly guitar choices as well.
The click was always in you, Fab. A light sounding song for everything besides the chorus, which is actually my least favorite part about this song, I think, as the previous two have said. I would much rather prefer the quicker and more light sound of the verses and the pre and post choruses. For some reason, the way Julian sings the line, I get down, it's automatic, always grabs my attention for some reason. I don't know why, but I thought I'd mention it in case that happens to anyone else. If not, that's fine. Overall, it's an okay song.
All right. Jack either has a 7-chapter book or the TV guy.
Love it or hate it. Love it or hate it. Take it or leave it.
I just didn't have much to say about it, man.
This is more groovy Strokes, and I love it. Similar vibe, kind of, to the light half of Eternal Summer. And the falsetto babe lyrics are super catchy. I love the second verse when the guitar gets a little bit of a filter on it. And it's paired with the quick, jaunty lyrics. I think you guys are definitely right. The chorus drags a little bit. But for me, the verses are strong enough to carry the song, especially for somebody who stays hungry. And I love the drum track too. Really, really nice, especially with the outro guitar.
I just wonder what his uncle's house has got to do with anything, man.
Yeah, what's going on at his uncle's house? I don't know, but nothing good, I think.
Yeah, geez. Like,
almost there. Not the same anymore. Second to last track.
I thought musically this had a chance to be a grinder, but the vocal phrasing is such an unmelodic mess that it wrecked it for me. I mean, I get the whole highbrow nonsense. Okay, mainstream is not cool, so we're not going to rhyme,
man,
and we're not going to have a hook, and we're going to meander, and we're going to do some weird things. We'll throw in some different sounds, and isn't this clever? But when you talk
hey
about music,
man.
music is melody, and without that, you've outsmarted yourself.
Sure.
I like I would call it a Beatlesque chord progression, especially at the beginning with those the chord progression and the musical choices that were being made. Um, the line that literally drew me out of the song was, "You'd make a better window than a door." My dad says that. I don't like that. I don't know why I don't like that, but it just bothers the hell
What
out
does
of
that
me.
mean? What does it mean?
No, my dad says you make a better door than a window, and this
Yeah,
is
I was
you'd
going to
make a
say.
better window than a door.
I don't get it
And I
though.
was so it means like if you're in the way, like if you stand in front of the TV and my dad is behind me, he will say you make a better door than a window. It means I can't see.
Okay.
You're
You're in the
mocking me,
way.
man.
And
You're
I hate
jamming
it.
me.
I hate I'm really not hate's a strong word. I'm not a huge fan of the lyrics in this song. I like the build. There's actually a build to this song which I can appreciate. And another brilliant guitar solo, which matches the tone. Um, the vocal, I did enjoy the I didn't know vocal. But
Mhm.
that was really about it. I don't have a whole heck of a lot because not my favorite song on the record.
Maybe it means that he can see through them, but he can't get through to them.
I'm sure that's it. Yeah.
Cal didn't like that. He's like, no, no. He's very disappointed.
He's not having it. No.
No. He's like, that's
Don't try
bullshit.
to extract meaning from the meaningless.
Wow.
It's funny. All right. I actually don't have a lot to say about this tune. I like the second chorus and the stank he puts on the yeah, yeah, yeahs, and the rest of it is fine. I don't find too much else to be noteworthy about it, though.
This is some of the classic dramatic Julian I'm used to. I love it when he lays it on thick, like in this one. Like Kale said, awesome guitars on this one because I think both of them are doing good stuff. And you want to talk
Agree.
about classic guitar-driven Strokes choruses? I mean, this song is the one that's packed full of them for me, and I like how each of the choruses kind of has a different tone. My personal favorites being the second and third, the second one being like the most strongly emotional, and the third being kind of apathetic. Solid track. Finally, Ode to the Mets.
Not a bad tune. I think it'd be a much better song, and I don't mean this facetiously, but I think it'd be a better song if it were a minute and a half shorter. It has some nice moments, but it just drags out too long for my taste. It doesn't meet my required 3.5 minute pop song. Did I say requirement already? Yeah.
I thought I was the short song guy, and yet I haven't complained once this
I was
entire album.
I was literally gonna say that. I was going to say that. I was like, all of these songs are averaging over 4.5 minutes. Why is Jack like so ecstatic about all of these songs? It does not make sense to me. Uh,
I guess you could just say I'm unpredictable.
yeah, just wait for my next week, buddy.
Oh
Oh yeah.
no.
Oh, I got some long songs coming your way.
I gotta take a break. I'm getting a little.
All of yours seem long, Kale.
Ode to the Mets. I thought a fitting conclusion to this album. I thoroughly enjoyed this song, and the title and some of the lyrics perfectly suggest the idea that this is a very New York album. And I think the more I listened to it, the more I got the feel of metropolitan life, or more importantly, um, modern metropolitan life, and kind of mixing in with the chaos of the new abnormal, which apparently, from what I understand, in a bustling city such as New York, to be shut down in a pandemic for a long time is kind of a rarity. And I think, given that context and given the personal experiences of the band, this album makes a lot of sense to me. Um, Despite the fact that I may not be a huge fan of some of the tracks, um, I get it. I totally get what this is. And I'm totally on board with what this band does next. I too did some a little tiny bit of research into their back catalog, and it's definitely different than this. So if this is a new chapter for this band, if this is Jefferson Airplane turning into Jefferson Starship, um, that's cool with me. I get behind these guys because I think there's something there um, that's willing to be exposed and dug out. I go off of what I learned from our Prince week, which was that if every Prince album was his first album, I'm not sure I would be as big a fan of his music as I was, and I think I'm in the same boat with these guys. I love hearing new music from young guys, and I definitely have hope for this group because there's something good here, and I think "Ode to the Mets" is the proof in the pudding that that's true.
Yeah, that's really good, Kale. I think that brought up quite a few things that I want to talk about. First, I want to talk about the progression of bands, obviously, like you just mentioned before I forget, because I need a dog on somebody who I know is listening to this. His name's, he's been mentioned before, Jason. He's not a big fan
Yeah.
of Hotel Tranquility, Base Hotel, or Hotel and Casino, and if every Arctic Monkeys album was the first Arctic Monkeys album, I would be an Arctic Monkeys fan, okay? So I'm glad that they've shifted and changed it a little bit, because if it's just the same thing every time, it gets old, Jason, okay? And I get your whole
Hey,
argument.
save your personal vendettas
No,
for
Dad.
off the air.
I get that you
This
think.
is cancel culture. This is cancel culture, and we're currently ruining Jason's whole career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that you think that they should have just released it under a different name and that it doesn't belong under the Arctic Monkeys name, but that's a dumb argument. I'm gonna say it.
I told him in the comments he was going to like this episode. Looks like I just baited him. Jabaited. Can we get some F's in the chat, boys?
Yeah, and also I need
We
to
just
talk.
lost our one fan.
Also, we need to talk about the name of the album. The New Abnormal is actually more closely tied to Eternal Summer, because it is directly a quote from, I forget who, but it's a speech about global warming and how that the upcoming like weather that stems from it is going to be the new abnormal, and we're going to be essentially in an eternal summer at some point because of it, and that's where it stems from. I forget who the guy was who said that in the speech, but that's what it's from. Which I think is, I mean, it's fitting with a lot of stuff, especially with the context of like COVID going on now. I'm not sure they planned for that. If they did, we got a little bit of a conspiracy going on.
That's only if you believe in science.
Yeah, true. But I guess it makes sense, and like He also just got a divorce right before this came out as well. So there's quite a few things that are changing. That's the new abnormal. So it makes sense, and not just the global warming context. But onto the song, it starts off sounding like Tron. So instantly I'm a fan. And then the guitar comes in, and Tron starts to fade. So I no longer like the song. I refuse to listen to the rest because it doesn't sound like Tron. That's all I got. Okay, no, just kidding. Just kidding. It's actually a really good song. Big fan of the melancholy tune. It's spawned the inside joke among fans of the band with the inside joke, drums please, Fob. Apparently, they find that really funny, so they say it. I don't quite get it. I get that it's funny in the song. I don't know if I'd say it outside of that context. Apparently, Fob had stepped out while they were recording to get a sandwich, is what Fob says, and that was his cue to get back. And I think the song is actually genuinely really good, and I don't think I can do it justice. But I will say is that Julian does put the stank on it, and it is a great track for the album to end on.
No doubt, a great closer. Ode to the Mets. If you've seen the music video, they're wearing some sweet Strokes baseball jerseys. It's definitely got a sports theme to it, which is kind of funny since in that interview I've mentioned a few times already, he says that he's given up sports years ago and doesn't follow anymore, but maybe it never totally goes away. And that this song was also written the night of a Mets playoff loss, the name. To me, this is peak Strokes, or at least peak like what Julian wants the Strokes to be. I imagine this is his favorite song on the album. It seems like just a high IQ song to me, and the fact that the lyrics are kind of, there's almost no repetition, right? Like it's completely different. It's like more of a song story than it is a song with any kind of traditional structure. I love the cockiness in the line, I was just bored playing the guitar, learned all your tricks, wasn't too hard. And I guess he's talked before about saying he knows the secret to songwriting, learned it in boarding school, listening to the Doors. Jack, I'm sure you read that.
Yep.
Which is just wild to me. He's like, yeah, I know like how to write songs if I need to. I've unlocked the secret. That's so cocky, but at the same time, I'm a sucker for that. So the outro is fantastic, and I think even though it's a little bit long, I think that is an amazing way to cap the album. I don't know totally how I feel about this track, but it definitely kind of takes me on a ride, and I don't get off until the song is over. And that's the whole album. So overall, I really loved doing this. I don't know how you guys felt. Even though I'd never heard it before, I don't really feel like I had a problem talking about it and relating to things and still establishing that familiarity, even though, this is probably one of the ones I've dove into most willingly of any we've done so far. And it was great to see your guys' perspective. As far as the album, I loved it because it really had an album feel to me, like, with a kind of a similar theme, or like a consistent, I guess, sound throughout. And I had a smooth listen front to back every time. Although I'm not sure that order really matters outside of finishing with Ode to the Mets too much. I think you could shuffle these around in just about any order as long as you leave that at the end.
Well, shall we rate this bad boy?
Oh.
Yeah, let me see if I got any other random things to talk about here. I wrote a few other random stuff down. Let's see. So, earlier, Jack, you were talking about Julian and having an alcoholism period.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned not really listening to the two albums in the early teens, Angles and Come Down Machine from 2011 and 2013, respectively. And I don't know, it's just kind of funny to me because Julian even mentions in the interview that those two albums were from a weird time because they were under a contract obligation where they had to get so many albums out in a certain amount of years. And obviously he was having a hard time. The band was really in a great place. And he says he still doesn't really understand those albums today. So when I heard that line, it made me feel a little bit better about not having listened to those. But it honestly kind of made me want to listen to them because from what I got today, they have more of that groove to them that I picked up more on this one than any of those old albums too. So maybe it's been more of a gradual transition than a, snap of the fingers overnight thing like I've kind of thought it's been. That's something I think that I need to go listen to those two albums to decide. Yeah, I guess that's it. They said they listened to a lot of Talking Heads and Rolling Stones with Rick Rubin, an inspiration for this album, which, I don't know. I guess I could kind of see, maybe. You want me to rate it first? This is going to be in the 4s for me. Looking at our last few, I think I'd put it a little bit below that self-titled Third Eye Blind for me, and probably about right there with the heavy. So right in that 4 range. Let's just say same as that, 4-4.
All right. I give
Big
it a
fan
4.
of this one.
Dad.
Oh yeah, I'll go 3-3.
I'm gonna go 3-4.
Okay. Making it out to be 3.775. Pretty good. And lastly, before I wrap this up, we got to go through some comments on the last YouTube video. Jader saying, I am very excited to hear what you guys think of the new Abnormal. In my opinion, it is their best work since the first 2 to 3 albums. It's got the 80s vibes, including direct nod on Bad Decisions, which we touched on. Ode to the Mets / Selfless are close to my top songs of 2020.
Again, I could see, I don't know about Selfless, but I could absolutely see how Ode to the Mets is a song that grows on you more and more over time, for sure. And as far as albums go, I mean, like I said, I'm missing out on those two in the middle, but I'd have to agree with you. I'd say it's definitely as good as those early albums, maybe if not better. I'm a sucker for first impressions, although listening to those old albums again, if I didn't have the attachment to first impressions I do, I'd say it's probably the weakest of those 3 of Room on Fire and Is This It? But this is definitely right there with those. So,
well, I hope you enjoyed this week, Jason. And then from Donovan, who also commented last week.
Let's get you on the show sometime, Jay.
Well, in that
Yeah,
spirit,
man, hit us up.
Donovan says, get Jaders on the show. Talk about International Criminal Police Organization.
We already got people calling for him, so we got to give the people what they want. Got to get the fans on. Jack, you might as well just give your week up now. I don't know about you. I'm ready to make that sacrifice.
You're ready to sacrifice my week.
Yes.
Oh, all right, right.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Well, and with that, it looks like it's been decided. I don't know about the International Criminal Police Force, but yeah.
All right, well,
Isn't
that's
that
the
his
comments
band?
we got.
Sounds like I got that name right, but let's just skate by that.
Okay.
I mean, wrong, not right. The opposite of right.
Organization, not force. All right, shall we end it here? Oh wait, next week.
I mean, what's going on? We got to know what the hell we're doing next week.
Yeah,
Oop,
what?
bleep that.
What hell?
Yeah. So
What the heck?
it's my
The
turn,
Sam
right?
Hill. Tarnation.
He sent it. Did you?
Whose week is it?
Oh,
Huh? Oh, just say it. What make us check the chat for? There's
Wait,
nothing in the chat.
did you say it?
Who are you talking to?
You, bro. Have you said it yet?
I'm waiting for somebody to shut up so I can
Oh.
talk.
Okay.
Jeez.
You gotta get in there, man. You gotta. If you're gonna get in the pit, you gotta throw some bows to wiggle your way in. You can't just sit there and wait for it to open up for you.
Somebody take a breath.
this is like Parliament. Just get in there.
Jesus. So we touched on bands progressions. Well, next week I'll be touching on popular music's progression. It is a history lesson, the dawn of rock. And I'm not sure y'all know just how awful the drivel on the radio was before rock and roll hit. So it was very much like a meteor crashing to earth when rock and roll hit the airwaves in 1954. So it'll be a little different, and I'll send the playlist in a moment. But first, I want to explain the first 3 songs are examples of top 10 songs in 1954. And these are pre-rock songs, okay? So these aren't ones you have to listen to multiple times. In fact, you won't want to listen to them in their complete form. Just listen for, a little bit to get the feel of how awful they are.
But notarize them.
Yes. And then there are 9 tracks, and songs back then were 3 minutes or less. So it'll be a pretty quick listen, and I'll be surprised if you don't know every single song. And so I'm not looking for a soliloquy of any kind on each track. Next week, I'm looking to have maybe some bullet points, some fun stuff. I'm not sure that we need to go in any order. Somebody has to start, of course, but then I'm looking to riff off each other because these are well-known songs and we can just kind of have a good time with them. Some were in movies, making them popular for subsequent generations as opposed to the original folks, age of the original folks that heard them. So I'm sending the playlist, and because it was so impactful, I'm calling the playlist Volcanic Rock, and it is like I say, a lot of early rock and roll, and the first 3 songs aren't for multiple listens, just
The Yellow Rose of Texas. Remember last week when I was talking about learning Swing Low, Sweet Chariot? That's another one we learned in that same class. Yellow Rose of Texas, same class.
This is the trash the radio was playing and people were subjected to.
Only one for me.
Sorry,
wow.
Mitch.
16 tons.
Yeah, now that's
3 minutes. Shit, half these songs are barely 2 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. But
yeah, I love that.
I hope it's fun and that you're not too burnt out on them all, that you can't give them another couple listens.
Hell yeah.
Excellent.
Sweet.
Well, can't wait.
No, this will be a fun one, and I like that you're the one bringing a new spin to the table this week. Your first kind of dive into the experimental.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, boys. That's all I got. Thanks to all our listeners. Thanks for anybody who watched this show. We've been talking about putting out episodes for a long time, and we just haven't done it. So even though we're dropping them raw, I'm glad to see we've got a couple people who decide to give it the time of day. That's really fun. And I hope if you've liked it so far, you stick around, and we'll keep working on it if you keep giving us feedback. So feel free to throw things out there. If there's anything you want to see, some segments, some Q&As, suggestions, guests, I'd love to see any and all of it. So, and I think maybe the rest of the boys will probably be reading the comments too. So, don't be shy, and looking forward till next week.
Thanks to you 6 boys who are subscribed.
Yeah.
Love
Yay! If only I could list them off by name, because I would do it. Every sub that comments next week gets a shout out by me.
Boom. There you go. And that's a promise.
Perks. That's perks. Sub perks.
Shooting for double digits by February.
Double digits. 10. Just 10. Shit, you get Dawn. You get Dawn. I get Mariah to subscribe. We're there.
Boom.
We can shoot for 20. At least that way we got a text extended family.
I got 3 brothers. We're halfway there.
Right. And they got kids, so you know.
Brother-in-law. Yeah, we can do this.
All right. Thank you for listening. This has been Passing Notes Podcast, spreading music across generations. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, cue the outro while we keep talking. And
It looked like we're having a good time.
So we're talking about building the podcast fan base. Well, we got to have a name for the army. What's the name?
For the army.
Leave it in the podcast. Leave it in the comments below. What do you want to be called?
Like we're passing notes. Are they like the
note takers?
The stack of stickies?
The mighty pens.
The passers. The passies. I don't know.
Hey, I got a handful of kale heads, so whatever works.
There you go.
There's always a few kale heads, though.
Oh yeah. We need to make merch. We need merch. We need like banger check, grinder check, or something like that.
Or other banger grinder.
Check,
yeah.
Hey, I don't know for sure, but I think usually the army is an organic thing, and they name themselves. They come up with their own name. So I think we're off the hook.
So Jason, let us know in the comments.
Give yourself your own nickname.
Huh?
Nothing.
Oh.
Don't worry about it. Let's wrap this up.
Cool.
I got a 2-hour-old grilled cheese to eat.
Okay.
Thanks for listening, boys
Halo ice cream
and girls. Peace out.